There are wounds that never bleed, yet leave you questioning if you're still alive. My dear sister, if you found your way to this moment, to these words floating between us like a bridge across troubled waters, then something inside you has been whispering a truth you've been afraid to name. Perhaps you felt it in the space between his words and his actions. Maybe you've noticed how your own voice seems to disappear whenever he enters the room, not because he's told you to be quiet, but because somehow, gradually, mysteriously, the air itself has become too thick for your truth to breathe. I want to talk with you today about something that has no name in most dictionaries, yet lives in the experience of so many women who thought they knew what love looked like. We're going to explore together the territory of gentle cruelty, that particular kind of devastation that arrives wearing the mask of devotion, carrying flowers in one hand and invisible chains in the other. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That feeling when someone says they love you, yet you find yourself shrinking. When someone claims they're protecting you, yet you feel more vulnerable than ever. When someone insists they're helping you become your best self, yet you can barely recognize the woman staring back at you from the mirror. The velvet knife, that's what I call it. It cuts just as deep as any blade, but it does so with such softness, such apparent care, that you find yourself apologizing for bleeding. You find yourself wondering if maybe you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. After all, how can something that looks so much like love hurt this badly? I've walked this path myself, darling. I've felt the confusion that comes when your spirit is screaming danger, but your mind can't quite put together why. When everything looks perfect from the outside, yet something essential inside you is withering away like a plant kept in beautiful darkness. This is what narcissistic abuse does to strong women. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures of obvious cruelty. Instead, it seeps in slowly, like water through the smallest crack, until one day you realize you're drowning in what was supposed to be your safe harbor. The velvet knife doesn't slash, it doesn't tear, it simply presses, gently but persistently, against everything that makes you who you are. Your confidence, your intuition, your sense of reality itself, until these precious parts of yourself begin to separate from your soul, quietly, almost politely. But here's what I need you to know right now, before we go any deeper into this territory together. Your confusion is not confusion at all. It's clarity trying to surface through the fog of someone else's careful manipulation. Your discomfort is not oversensitivity. It's wisdom, pure and simple, recognizing that something beautiful in your life has been poisoned at its roots. You haven't lost your mind, my dear. You've just been living in someone else's version of reality for so long that you've forgotten what your own truth feels like. But it's still there, waiting patiently beneath all the doubt and second guessing, like a spring that never stops flowing, no matter how many rocks someone piles on top of it. You remember when love used to feel like flying, don't you? There was a time when your heart opened like a morning flower, when affection flowed through you like warm honey, sweet and nourishing and completely natural. Love was supposed to lift you, to make you feel more yourself than you'd ever felt before. So why does this love, the one he insists is real, is pure, is everything you've ever wanted, feel like you're slowly sinking beneath still waters? When love becomes drowning, it happens so gradually that you don't notice you've stopped breathing normally until you're gasping. At first, it felt wonderful to be so wanted, so needed, so completely the center of someone's universe. He would say things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone before," and "You're everything I've been searching for." The intensity felt like passion. The constant attention felt like devotion. But somewhere along the way, that beautiful intensity began to feel like a weight pressing down on your chest. His need for you started to feel less like love and more like hunger. the kind that's never satisfied, no matter how much of yourself you feed into it. His attention became a spotlight that felt less warm and more interrogating, asking questions your soul couldn't answer. Why were you 5 minutes late? Why did you smile at the cashier that way? Why do you need time with your friends when you have him? This is how drowning in love begins. Not with a great wave that knocks you down, but with water that rises so slowly around your ankles, your knees, your waist, that you convince yourself you're still standing on solid ground, even as your feet can no longer touch bottom. You might have noticed that your own needs started to feel selfish. Your own thoughts began to feel wrong. Your own feelings seemed too much, too dramatic, too inconvenient. He never said these things directly. He's far too clever for that. Instead, he would sigh softly when you expressed a concern. He would get that look in his eyes, hurt, disappointed, whenever you needed something he didn't want to give. And because you love him, because you want to be the woman he believes you can become, you started adjusting. Just small changes at first. You stopped mentioning the things that bothered you. You began asking permission for things you used to decide on your own. You found yourself explaining your thoughts, your feelings, your very existence, trying to make them acceptable to someone whose approval had somehow become more important than your own inner knowing. The drowning feeling comes from this. You're suffocating on love that asks you to be less than who you are. You're gasping for air in a relationship that seems to leave room for only one person to breathe deeply, and somehow that person is never you. But here's the truth he'll never tell you, the one that rises like a life preserver in these dark waters. Real love doesn't drown the beloved. Real love teaches you to swim better. Real love gives you more air, not less. Real love says, be exactly who you are, not become who I need you to be. You're not drowning because you're weak. You're drowning because you're trying to breathe underwater, and no one, not even the strongest swimmer, can do that indefinitely. The most beautiful cages are the ones you don't realize you're locked inside until you try to leave. My darling, let me tell you about chains that don't rattle, bars that cast no shadows, locks that have no keys, because you're never quite sure if they're really there at all. This is perhaps the most insidious part of gentle cruelty, the way it builds walls around your freedom so carefully, so lovingly, that you mistake your prison for protection. He's never said you can't see your friends. Heaven knows he would never be that obvious, that crude. Instead, every time you make plans with Sarah or Lisa or your sister, something happens. He gets that quiet, wounded look. He mentions that he was hoping to spend that evening with you. He reminds you, so softly, how little time you two have together because of his demanding schedule. Or perhaps he suddenly has a crisis, not a dramatic one, just something that needs your attention, your comfort, your presence. After a while, you stop making plans, not because he's forbidden you, but because it's become too complicated, too emotionally expensive. You tell yourself you prefer quiet evenings at home anyway. You convince yourself that a truly loving woman wants to be with her partner more than anyone else. The invisible chains work differently than metal ones. They're forged from guilt and confusion and the deep human need to be good, to be understanding, to be the woman he believes you are, when you're being your best self. They're made from his disappointed sighs when you express an opinion he doesn't share. They're crafted from his subtle corrections. I think what you meant to say was, or you're being a little dramatic, aren't you? These chains are made from the way he reframes your memories. That's not how it happened, said with such certainty that you begin to doubt your own recollection. They're built from his ability to turn your concerns about his behavior into discussions about your insecurity, your jealousy, your inability to trust. The art of invisible chains lies in making you complicit in your own imprisonment. You start policing your own thoughts, editing your own words, dimming your own light, all in service of keeping peace in a relationship that somehow never quite feels peaceful. You become the one who says no to invitations he never explicitly asked you to decline. You become the one who silences your own voice before he has to do it for you. But here's what the chain maker doesn't want you to know. Invisible chains can be broken with invisible keys. And the most powerful of these keys is simply recognition, seeing the bars for what they are, naming the cage even when it's painted in the colors of love. The moment you can say, "This is not protection, this is control," the lock begins to loosen. When you can whisper, even just to yourself, "My freedom is not negotiable," the chains start to dissolve, because invisible prisons only work when you can't see them clearly. Your instincts have been trying to show you the bars all along. That restlessness you feel, that sense of suffocation, that growing hunger for something you can't quite name, that's not discontent. That's your soul, pressing against limitations that were never meant to contain you. Reality used to be such a simple thing, didn't it? You knew what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. Your memory was your own trusted companion. Your perceptions were reliable witnesses to your own life. Now you find yourself constantly questioning everything, your memory, your judgment, your very sanity. And the most bewildering part is that this erosion of your inner compass happens through the gentlest of corrections, the most loving of concerns, delivered with such care that you feel ungrateful for doubting them. "I never said that, sweetheart. You must be remembering it wrong." His voice carries no anger, just a patient sadness for your obvious confusion. "You're being overly sensitive again, darling. I was just trying to help." The words land softly, but they land in exactly the right spot to make you wonder if your feelings can be trusted at all. This is gaslighting wrapped in silk, the slow, careful dismantling of your relationship with your own truth. It doesn't come with shouting or obvious manipulation. Instead, it arrives wearing the mask of concern, speaking in the language of love, presenting itself as protection from your own supposedly faulty perceptions. He remembers conversations differently than you do, but he remembers them with such conviction, such detailed certainty, that you begin to trust his version over your own. He reframes your emotional responses with such clinical precision. "You're overthinking this. You're being irrational. You always do this when you're stressed." That you start to see yourself through his diagnostic lens rather than your own lived experience. The silk glove gaslighter never tells you that you're crazy. He's far too sophisticated for such obvious brutality. Instead, he expresses concern for your mental state. He suggests so gently that maybe you should talk to someone about your anxiety, your paranoia, your tendency to misinterpret his innocent actions. He positions himself as the long-suffering partner of a woman who just can't seem to see things clearly. What makes this particular form of reality erosion so devastating is how reasonable it all sounds. After all, we all misremember things sometimes, don't we? We all overreact occasionally, right? We all have blind spots and emotional triggers and moments of irrational behavior. The silk glove gaslighter simply takes these normal human experiences and turns them into evidence of your fundamental unreliability as a witness to your own life. You begin to preface your own thoughts with disclaimers. "Maybe I'm wrong, but," or "I might be overreacting." However, you start recording conversations in your mind, frantically trying to hold on to your version of events before his more convincing narrative takes over. You find yourself apologizing for feelings you haven't even expressed yet, trying to soften your own truth before it can be deemed too sharp, too much, too inconvenient. But listen to me carefully, my dear. Your reality is not up for revision. Your memories are not rough drafts waiting for his editorial review. Your feelings are not symptoms of a disorder that needs his diagnosis. Your perceptions are not broken instruments that need his calibration. The woman you were before the silk glove started reshaping your reality. She's still in there, holding on to truth like a lighthouse holds onto its beam. She knows what she saw. She remembers what was said. She feels what she feels, and her feelings are responses to real things happening in real time in the real world. Trust her, even when, especially when, everyone else is telling you not to. There was a time when your words came easily, didn't there? When your thoughts flowed from your mind to your mouth like water from a clear spring, unfiltered and unafraid. You used to have opinions that mattered to you, strong ones. You would speak up in meetings, disagree when something felt wrong, laugh loudly when something delighted you. Your voice had texture and weight and presence. People listened when you spoke because your words carried the unmistakable ring of authenticity. But somewhere along the way, your voice began to sound strange to your own ears. Not gone exactly, but different. Smaller, more careful. As if your words had to pass through several checkpoints before they were allowed to leave your mouth. As if every thought needed approval from some invisible committee before it could become speech. The theft of your voice happens so gradually that you don't notice the silence growing until you realize you haven't said anything real in months. It begins with small corrections, delivered with such apparent care. What you really mean is, or a better way to say that would be, or you don't actually believe that, do you? He never tells you to stop speaking. Instead, he teaches you that your words need improvement, that your thoughts require his translation to be acceptable to the world. He positions himself as your interpreter, your editor, your voice coach, helping you communicate more effectively, more reasonably, more correctly. You begin to hear his voice in your head before your own. When something bothers you, you first imagine how he would explain why you're wrong to be bothered. When you want to share good news, you hear his potential criticism before you hear your own joy. When you start to speak up about something important, his voice whispers the reasons why you should stay quiet. The most heartbreaking part of voice theft is how it convinces you that you're being improved. He makes you believe that his version of your thoughts is clearer, more rational, more palatable than your own messy, emotional, inconvenient truth. You start to see your authentic voice as something crude that needs refinement, something sharp that needs smoothing, something loud that needs quieting. You begin to speak in his language instead of your own. You adopt his phrases, his perspectives, his way of dismissing concerns that don't fit his version of reality. You find yourself arguing his points of view in conversations with friends, defending positions that don't quite feel like yours, explaining away your own discomfort with words that taste foreign in your mouth. But here's what the voice thief can never steal, no matter how skilled his technique: the voice that speaks in silence, the voice that whispers truth when you're alone in the shower, the voice that screams when you're driving by yourself, the voice that writes in journals hidden in places he'll never look. That voice, your real voice, has never stopped speaking. It's been practicing in the quiet spaces, keeping your true thoughts alive, like a fire tended in secret. It remembers every opinion he's convinced you to abandon, every feeling he's taught you to distrust, every word he's told you not to say. Your voice is not lost, my darling. It's just been waiting for safe space to emerge again. And the moment you give it permission to speak without asking anyone else's approval first, you'll be amazed at how much it has to say. Who are you when no one else is defining you? This might be the hardest question you've faced in years, because somewhere along the way, the mirrors in your life stopped reflecting your image and started showing only what he wanted to see. The woman looking back at you has become a carefully edited version of yourself, touched up and filtered until she's almost unrecognizable. He loves you, he says. But when you listen closely to how he describes the woman he loves, she sounds like a stranger wearing your name. She's calmer than you've ever been, more agreeable, less complicated. She doesn't have those messy emotional responses that used to feel so real to you. She doesn't need the things you used to think were essential to your happiness. She's grateful for his guidance, appreciative of his patience with her flaws, dedicated to becoming the woman he sees in her potential. This is the cruelest magic trick of gentle manipulation. The way it convinces you that the diminished version of yourself is actually the improved version. The way it makes you believe that losing pieces of your personality is evidence of growth, that silencing parts of your soul is proof of maturity. You've been living with mirrors that reflect only what serves his narrative. When you're laughing too loudly, the mirror shows him a woman who needs to learn indoor voices. When you're crying, it shows him a woman who's being dramatic. When you're angry about something that matters to you, it reflects back a woman who's being unreasonable, oversensitive, difficult to love. But the most devastating part isn't just that the mirrors lie about who you are, it's that you've started to believe their lies. You've begun to see yourself through his eyes exclusively, to judge your own worth by his measurements, to edit your own story according to his preferences. You've forgotten that you used to like your own laugh, even when it was loud. You've forgotten that your tears used to feel like necessary cleansing, not inconvenient displays. You've forgotten that your anger used to be a compass pointing toward injustice, not a character flaw that needed managing. In the house of false mirrors, you've lost the ability to see your own true reflection. You no longer know if your thoughts are your own or his suggestions. You can't remember if your dreams were once different or if you've always wanted exactly what he wants. You're not sure if your personality has evolved or simply evaporated. But here's the secret about false mirrors. They only work when you're looking at them. When you turn away, when you close your eyes and feel inward instead of looking outward for confirmation, the real you is still there. She's been waiting patiently behind all the distorted reflections, unchanged by his opinions, unedited by his preferences. She remembers who you were before someone else's vision of you became more important than your own self-knowledge. She knows your real laugh, your honest tears, your righteous anger. She's been keeping track of the dreams you had before someone else's dreams took over your pillow. The woman in the true mirror, the one you'll find when you stop looking for validation in eyes that refuse to see you clearly, she's not a project to be improved or a rough draft waiting for revision. She's complete as she is, whole as she is, worthy of love exactly as she is, and she's been waiting so patiently for you to remember her face. There are things about yourself you can no longer remember, aren't there? Not big things, those would be too obvious, too alarming. No, this is a more subtle kind of forgetting. You can't quite recall when you stopped painting, or why you don't call your mother as often, or what happened to that playlist you used to love so much. You can't pinpoint the exact moment when your favorite restaurant became his favorite restaurant, when your weekend plans started revolving around his preferences, when your own joy became something that needed his approval to be legitimate. The slow erasure doesn't happen with dramatic declarations or sudden prohibitions. Instead, it works through 1,000 tiny accommodations, each one so small and reasonable that questioning it would seem petty. It happens through the gentle redirection of your attention away from the things that once fed your soul and toward the things that feed his comfort. Your hobbies become inconvenient distractions from the time you could be spending with him. Your friendships become sources of negative influence that he tolerates but doesn't understand why you need. Your personal interests become strange little quirks that he finds amusing but not worth taking seriously. Your dreams become impractical fantasies that a mature woman would naturally outgrow. The erasure is so slow that you participate in it willingly. You put away your easel because he needs the space. You skip book club because he had a difficult day and needs your attention. You delete songs from your playlist because they remind you of feelings he doesn't think you should have. You stop mentioning your career ambitions because his gentle skepticism makes them feel foolish. Each small sacrifice feels reasonable in isolation. After all, relationships require compromise, don't they? Love means putting someone else's needs first sometimes, right? And he never asks directly. He simply expresses his preferences, his concerns, his confusion about why these things matter so much to you. He questions not your right to have interests, but whether these particular interests are really worthy of someone as intelligent as you. You begin to see your former self through his eyes, as a woman who was perhaps a bit scattered, a bit self-indulgent, a bit naive about what really matters in life. You start to feel grateful for his guidance away from the person you used to be and toward this newer, more refined version of yourself. You convince yourself that losing those parts of you wasn't loss at all. It was evolution. But erasure is not evolution, my dear. Diminishment is not improvement. When pieces of your authentic self disappear in service of someone else's comfort, that's not growth. It's grief disguised as accommodation. What you're mourning, though you may not have named it as mourning yet, is the death of your full, complicated, wonderfully imperfect self. The woman who painted badly but with joy, the woman who sang off-key in the car, the woman who had strong opinions about small things and big dreams about impossible things. She didn't disappear because she was flawed. She disappeared because someone needed her to be smaller so he could feel larger. Someone needed her to be quieter so he could fill all the space with his own voice. Someone needed her to be less so he could be more. But here's what the eraser can never touch: the indelible parts of you that exist beyond anyone else's reach, the spark that made you who you are before anyone else had opinions about it, the essential self that no relationship can diminish unless you give permission. That woman, the one who existed before the slow erasure began, she's not gone. She's just been compressed into the quiet spaces of your heart, waiting for permission to expand again, to remember what she loved, to reclaim what was taken so gently she barely noticed it was leaving. The morning you first glimpse your real face again will come quietly, without fanfare or dramatic music. Maybe you'll catch sight of yourself laughing at something on the television, really laughing, the way you used to before someone taught you that your amusement was too loud, too much, too inconvenient. For just a moment, you'll see the woman you were before the careful editing began, and you'll think, "Oh, there I am." Or perhaps it will happen in a conversation with an old friend, when you find yourself saying something true, something real and unfiltered, and realizing with a start that you haven't said anything that authentic in months. You'll hear your own voice speaking your own thoughts, and you'll remember what it felt like when your words belonged to you instead of to someone else's comfort. The return to yourself doesn't happen all at once. It's not a sudden awakening where all the fog clears and everything becomes crystal clear. Instead, it's a gradual recognition, like watching the sunrise slowly bring definition to a landscape you thought you'd forgotten completely. You begin to notice the little accommodations you've been making without thinking, the way you automatically defer to his preferences, the way you edit your enthusiasm before expressing it, the way you second-guess your own reactions to everything from movies to major life decisions. These habits feel automatic now, but seeing them clearly is the first step toward choosing differently. There will be moments of profound sadness as you realize how much of yourself you've allowed to slip away in the name of keeping peace. You'll grieve the conversations you didn't have, the dreams you set aside, the parts of your personality you learned to hide. This grief is necessary, darling. It's not self-pity, it's recognition. It's the acknowledgement that something precious was lost, and that loss deserves to be honored before healing can begin. You might find yourself testing your own voice in small ways, expressing an opinion you would normally keep to yourself, choosing a restaurant he doesn't prefer, saying no to something without offering 3 detailed explanations for your decision. Each small act of authenticity will feel both terrifying and exhilarating, like remembering how to use muscles you'd forgotten you had. The woman you're rediscovering isn't the same woman you were before this experience. How could she be? You've been through something that changed you, taught you things about yourself and about love and about the difference between the two. But she's still essentially you, your humor, your curiosity, your way of seeing beauty in unexpected places, your particular blend of strength and tenderness. You'll be surprised by how much of yourself was preserved in the quiet spaces he couldn't reach. Your love of rainy afternoons, your fascination with that one specific type of cloud formation, your secret fondness for terrible romantic comedies, your way of humming while you cook. These small, authentic pieces of yourself were never really gone. They were just waiting for safe space to emerge again. The most beautiful part of finding your reflection again is realizing that you don't need anyone else's permission to be who you are. You don't need anyone's approval to like what you like, want what you want, dream what you dream. The woman in the mirror doesn't require editing or improvement or guidance toward her own authentic expression. She just needs space. Space to breathe, to think, to feel, to remember who she was before someone else's vision of her became more important than her own self-knowledge. There is territory in your life that belongs to you alone, sacred ground that no one else should be allowed to build upon, no matter how much they claim to love you. Your thoughts are sacred ground. The private conversations you have with yourself, the quiet moments of reflection when you're processing your experiences, these belong to you. No one has the right to tell you what to think about your own life, how to interpret your own experiences, or what conclusions to draw from your own observations. Your feelings are sacred ground. The full range of your emotional responses, your anger, your sadness, your joy, your fear, these are yours to feel without needing anyone else's permission or approval. No one has the right to tell you that your feelings are wrong, too much, inappropriate, or inconvenient for their comfort. Your dreams are sacred ground, the hopes you carry for your future, the ambitions that make your heart race, the possibilities that excite your imagination. These belong to you. No one has the right to dismiss them as unrealistic, redirect them toward their preferences, or convince you that wanting what you want is somehow evidence of your immaturity. Your relationships are sacred ground. The connections you maintain with friends, family, colleagues, these are yours to nurture as you see fit. No one has the right to create distance between you and the people who knew and loved you before they arrived, or to position themselves as the only relationship you really need. Your body is sacred ground. How you dress, how you move through the world, how you care for your physical self, these choices belong to you. No one has the right to control your appearance, monitor your activities, or make you feel as though your autonomy is somehow selfish. Your time is sacred ground. How you spend your hours, what activities bring you joy, what pace feels sustainable for your life, these are yours to determine. No one has the right to fill all your time with their needs, their emergencies, their preferences, leaving no space for your own pursuits. Reclaiming your sacred ground doesn't require dramatic confrontations or grand declarations of independence. It starts with the quiet recognition that some things are not negotiable. It begins with the gentle but firm establishment of boundaries around the parts of yourself that must remain yours alone. You might start by taking back small pieces of territory, spending an afternoon reading a book he finds pointless, calling a friend he doesn't particularly like, expressing an opinion you know he disagrees with, without immediately offering to debate or defend it. Each small act of reclamation strengthens your connection to the woman who has every right to exist exactly as she is. There will be resistance to your boundary setting. When someone has grown accustomed to unlimited access to all of your territory, any attempt to reclaim your space will feel threatening to them. They may respond with hurt feelings, accusations of selfishness, or attempts to negotiate away the boundaries you're trying to establish. But here's what you must remember. Your sacred ground is not subject to negotiation. It's not something you earn through good behavior or lose through imperfection. It's yours by birthright, yours by virtue of being a complete human being with inherent worth and dignity. The woman who protects her sacred ground is not selfish, she's wise. She's not being difficult, she's being healthy. She's not asking for too much, she's simply refusing to accept too little. Your sacred ground has been waiting patiently for you to remember where you end and where everyone else begins. It's time to come home to yourself. The journey back to yourself is not a destination you arrive at with fanfare and celebration. It's a quiet homecoming, like walking into a house you've been away from for so long that you'd forgotten how the light falls through the windows in the afternoon. You don't wake up one morning completely healed, completely whole, completely free from the patterns that kept you small. Instead, you wake up one morning and realize that you slept peacefully without checking your phone first thing. You wake up and your first thought is about what you want for breakfast, not about managing someone else's mood. You wake up and remember what it feels like when your own needs are the first thing on your mind. The gentle return happens in moments of recognition scattered throughout ordinary days. You notice that you've started humming again while you do the dishes. You realize you've made plans with friends without asking permission or feeling guilty. You catch yourself disagreeing with something without immediately apologizing or offering to be wrong instead. There will be days when the old patterns try to reassert themselves, when doubt creeps in and whispers that maybe you were wrong to trust your own perceptions, when the old familiar urge to make yourself smaller returns like muscle memory, when the voice in your head sounds suspiciously like someone else's opinion about who you should be. On those days, be gentle with yourself. Healing is not a straight line, and returning to yourself is not a performance that you can fail. It's a practice, like learning to breathe deeply again after holding your breath for so long you forgot what oxygen felt like. The woman you're becoming, or rather, the woman you're remembering how to be, is not the same person you were before this experience. How could she be? You've learned things about love and manipulation, about strength and vulnerability, about the difference between being cherished and being controlled. These lessons, painful as they were to learn, are part of your wisdom now. You carry scars from the gentle cruelty you survived, and you always will. But scars are not wounds, they're proof of healing. They're evidence that you endured something that could have destroyed you, and you came through it with your essential self intact. They're reminders of your resilience, not your damage. The gentle return to self is not about becoming invulnerable. It's about learning to trust your vulnerability to worthy hands. It's about recognizing the difference between someone who wants to help you heal and someone who wants to convince you that you're broken. It's about understanding that real love doesn't require you to be anyone other than exactly who you are. You're remembering now what it feels like to take up the space you're entitled to speak with your own voice, to trust your own judgment, to set boundaries without apology, to love someone without losing yourself in the process, to be in relationship while remaining in relationship with yourself. The most beautiful part of coming home to yourself is realizing that you never actually left. The real you, the essential, irreducible, magnificent you, was always there, waiting patiently, beneath all the accommodations and adjustments and careful self-editing, waiting for the moment when it would be safe to emerge again. And now, in the quiet space you've created by choosing yourself, by protecting your sacred ground, by refusing to accept love that diminishes you, now there's room for your true self to unfold again. Like a flower that's been compressed in a book for so long it's forgotten its own shape, slowly opening its petals to the light. You're home, darling, not to a place, but to yourself. Welcome back. In the soft silence that follows our conversation, let yourself rest in this truth. You are worthy of love that celebrates who you are, not love that requires you to become someone else. Your healing is holy work. Your wholeness is a gift to the world. And your gentle return to yourself is the most courageous thing you'll ever do.